Before Elliot Castro was old enough to vote, he had stolen almost $3 million. The Scottish fraudster had a dangerous combination of intelligence and criminal instincts. But how exactly did Castro pull off his amazing heists? Today, we're looking at how a teenager stole $2.8 million. Elliot Castro was born in Aberdeen, Scotland, and grew up in the Logie area of Aberdeen with his father Carlos and mother Jane. He went to Hill Primary School. At the age of 7, he moved with his family to Chile before returning to Scotland, where they lived in Glasgow. Other than moving around often, he had a pretty normal childhood. So why did Castro start a life of crime? Castro describes finding a credit card on a train platform as a teenager. Instead of doing the right thing and turning the credit card in, he pocketed the card and tried to use it for his train fare. Even though the police boarded the train and caught Castro, he describes this as his first run-in with criminality. Unfortunately, Castro liked the feeling and wanted to experience the rush again. When Castro turned 16, he dropped out of school and began looking for a job. He was hired as a call center employee for a major British mobile phone network. Not only was his job predicated on a lie, Castro told the company he was 18 years old in order to get the job. He also used this position to steal people's personal information. His main heist involved using clients' bank information to order new bank cards to his address, where he would use them until the client finally caught on and cancelled the card. Clever and morally blinded by power and greed, Elliot Castro ascended from haircuts and CDs to designer watches worth €12,000 and first-class flights. In fact, Castro claims he visited every country in Europe using money from the people he swindled. He was definitely living the high life. Castro would spend $15,000 at a club in a single night. He was drinking heavily and using drugs. He earned the money easily and spent it just as quickly. I had always been drawn to scenes that spoke of luxury and lavishness, he explains. I longed to be the businessman making offers that couldn't be refused and sending subordinates to Rodeo Drive on my account. During this time, Castro was briefly jailed in Canada, but he stole the credit card information of the Canadian Immigration Department in order to escape the country. He even pretended to be a secret agent to commandeer a car while escaping cops in Toronto, Canada. Castro, who is gay, said, "I liked that part. It was exciting. I almost started to believe it myself. It was a bit like being a younger, gayer James Bond. But each time afterwards, I would always think, how the hell did I get away with that?" Castro describes his time in a Canadian prison as one of the worst of his life. "I spent the whole first week crying," he says. "People were being stabbed regularly." He took a flight back to Glasgow and started to reconsider his life. But no amount of introspection could save Elliot Castro. A group of international law enforcement agencies had been working for years to build a case against him, and when he was 22 years old, they finally took their opportunity to apprehend him. He was arrested and sentenced to 2 years in an English prison. Though Castro had a number of aliases, his lies to his friends and family began to add up, and eventually, the authorities connected the dots. It turns out that he had been arrested in 1998 in London, but he skipped his court date and evaded his warrant by using fake identities. 6.5 years later, the authorities caught up with him. As his purchases became more flashy, Castro began to draw more attention to himself. He bought a BMW 7 Series for more than $50,000, even though he didn't know how to drive, and didn't have a valid driver's license. He says, "It was just to show off to people that I knew." At the BMW dealership, a man approached Castro and told him he was under arrest. At the time, Castro had dozens of credit cards with different names in his wallet, and he knew his days of lying were over. After doing his time, Castro decided he had had enough of his career of theft. Castro decided to turn his life around when he left prison and became a highly respected independent fraud prevention consultant. He is dedicated to helping businesses, financial institutions, and law enforcement departments keep their assets secure. His previous clients include Barclays, Metropolitan Police, IATA, UBS, and the FBI. But don't think that Castro is working from a place of charity. He charges huge amounts of money for his services and capitalized on his time as a thief by writing a best-selling book. His book, Other People's Money, told the tales of his exploits and was a great success. Elliot Castro makes regular appearances on TV and radio as a guest on Consumer Affairs and Security and Risk, and is a part-time DJ. It seems that a life of crime can pay, because at the age of 25 years, Elliot Castro sold the rights to his book, Other People's Money, to film producer Charles Steele, whose most famous movie was the BAFTA award-winning film The Last King of Scotland, starring Forest Whitaker and James McAvoy. Many people have compared Castro to Colombian thief Guzman Betancourt, who managed to travel the world for 15 years by stealing more than $2 million from unsuspecting victims. But Castro is clear that people should not envy Betancourt. He said, Betancourt was living a similar lifestyle to mine with a lot of international travel, the best hotels, and endless amounts of cash. Believe it or not, all of this actually leads to a very lonely life. Betancourt won't be able to tell anyone what he's doing. He would have to have kept it top secret to keep going as long as he did. The problem with fraud is it not only becomes your main source of income, but your lifestyle as well. Once you get into that world, it's very hard to get out of it. Castro continued, "Our cases are similar in that we both used expensive hotels for our various scams, but I was more into acquiring credit cards and account numbers from other guests, usually posing as hotel security, whereas Betancourt seems to have been more of a cat burglar, stealing jewels and money from hotel safes." Explaining how the life of a super fraudster begins, Elliot said, "You start scamming small, maybe £50 or something, then it just escalates. Before you know it, you're in a nightclub paying £700 for a bottle of champagne on someone else's credit card. There's no doubt crime is very profitable. I could make thousands of pounds in an hour. That sort of dough is enticing for anyone." But Castro also reveals the conflict that flows through a conman's mind when they have pulled off a big job. He said, "Quite often I'd walk away with thousands of pounds and think, what am I doing? I don't even need this money. I felt shame at times. But the lifestyle is as addictive as a drug. When you know how, you want more. If I was ripping off a shop with fake cards and the people serving me were really friendly, I genuinely felt bad afterwards." For those people who believe that Castro's life was perfect, he says he lived with constant guilt and secretly wanted to be caught. Castro said, "I'd set up base in Belfast and had a brilliant circle of friends around me. They were really nice, genuine folk, and I just wanted to be honest with them, but I couldn't. I was a fake, an imposter. That was a truly horrible feeling. I felt disgusted with myself." Now, Castro tours to talk about his life of crime, and he encourages his audiences to focus on things other than making money. Of course, he didn't need to worry about paying rent, but he also wasn't able to form close friendships, a fact that still haunts him to this day. He says that he had very few friends and used money as a means of endearing himself to new people. He would go to the club and pay for everyone's drink, but never managed to become close with anyone because he was living a lie. Now, 36 years old, Castro is totally reformed and hopes he can teach other rebellious youths to learn from his mistakes. Castro admits that he got very lucky in many ways. Many people spend longer in prison for much less serious crimes. In the end, he lost all of his money, but gained a new purpose and direction in life.